Good morning, everyone. Hi. Today is lesson 5 for writing. We're going to be writing a description, a setting description. And so this is going to form next week the beginning of our story. We're going to join together our character description and our setting description, and that's going to be our kind of opening half a page to our story about the two frogs. So I thought I'd run through a couple of ideas about how to write a setting description. Of course, you can write it however you like, but I thought I might just kind of try and make it a little bit more interesting so that we really set the scene, because it's going to be the first few words you read of your story. Okay, so let's get started with this. And bear with me a second. I just need to find slideshow. Right. So to practice our description writing skills to create effective settings, what that basically means is tell me what you see and make it a bit more interesting. So we're going to be writing about the two frogs. Now, the two frogs are clearly next to lily pads. They're in a lake or a big pond, and it's out in the wild. So I'm going to say it's probably in the woods. All right. So the first thing we want to focus on is our senses. Now, when you write about a setting, you need to make sure you're using lots of description. And so an easy way of thinking about that is our 5 senses. What can you see? What can you hear? Maybe what you can taste, touch, and smell. Now, we're year 3, so let's focus on maybe just using 2 of those things, and sight and hearing. And then when we start focusing on our characters, maybe we can focus on touch and smell as well. All right. So I'm just going to run through a couple of words for you, a little bit of vocabulary. So we're going to be writing a description, and I'll show you a picture at the end of what, in my head, I think the lake looks like. So you've got something like this picture here, where you could use words like dilapidated, I can't even say that properly, overgrown, wilderness, lonely, and broken. So maybe your lake is in the wilderness and it's overgrown and it's a lonely place. All right. Or maybe it's majestic and crisp and peaceful next to the water. Maybe it's a frozen day when it's your one. Okay. Or maybe it's a river, a really powerful, relentless river that meanders into a lake. Okay, so this is what I'm going to be focusing on. This is my picture. And I'm going to try and focus on interesting verbs, possibly a simile, possibly some adverbs as well. So I'm really just going to be focusing on what I can see and possibly what I might be able to hear there. So this would be a good opportunity for you to just sketch out a little picture of a lake with some trees around it. If I stop sharing the screen, and we'll just have to remember what that picture looks like. And we'll make this big. And then we'll start writing. So we want to think about what our lake looks like. And I thought, do you know what? I thought I would go back to really, really simple, and then we'll try and make that bigger. So I thought if I just say what I can see first. So the lake is in the woods. Yeah, the lake is in the woods. Let's get you so you can see all of that. The lake is in the woods and it's covered in lily pads. Now, that's not a bad description. It tells you exactly what you can see. Now, it maybe doesn't make me want to go there, but for a basic setting description, that's fine, okay? And then in year 3, we should probably be looking just a little bit higher than that. So maybe we could tell us what we could hear. So the lake is in the woods and it is covered in lily pads, and the sound of birds tweeting. So there's 2 sentences there, and it gives you an idea of where our place is set. So let's use those 3 sentences and just lift them up a bit, make them better. So rather than the lake was in the woods, we could go for, have I got a different coloured pen? I've got a green one. Okay, so the lake is in the woods. Let's make it past tense anyway. Now, maybe we could describe the lake. Yeah. So the crystal blue lake. So straight away, we've now just put two adjectives in front of the lake. Still pretty much the same sentence. The lake, the crystal blue lake. We'll put a comma in there because it's an expanded noun phrase. The crystal blue lake was, so rather than in the woods, why don't we say surrounded by, let's see, surrounded by woods, forest. I mean, what are we talking about here? We're talking about trees, right? So why don't we come up with a name for the trees? So what trees do you know? You could say it's the crystal blue lake was surrounded by large cherry trees, powerful oak trees, willows. Willows would be great, wouldn't it? Was surrounded by the large branches of willow trees. That'd be fantastic. Okay, I'm going to go for surrounded by evergreen trees. Okay, so that's still pretty much the same sentence. The lake is in the woods. The crystal blue lake was surrounded by evergreen trees. Still essentially the same thing. It's just this one's hopefully a little bit more interesting because we've put some adjectives in there and we've thought about it just a little bit more. So it is covered in lily pads. Okay, it was covered in, let's give those lily pads a description. So it was covered in emerald green lily pads and reflected the light of the sun. That works, right? It was covered in emerald green lily pads. I'm going to say which, what are they doing? They're floating, right? They're floating, they're bobbing, yeah, let's say that. It was covered in emerald green lily pads, and I'm actually going to go for bright purple lilies, right? Okay, so now I've got the flowers. The soft water, I've missed my birds out, I'll put those back in a second. The soft water shimmered like, now you're thinking of something that shimmers, so mirror, glitter balls, glitter, those kind of things. I'm going to go for fish scales. That works for me. Not beautifully poetic, but it does work. So the soft water shimmered like fish scales. And then I suppose you could go a little bit pretentious and a little bit flowery and say the soft water shimmered like fish scales in the sun, right? In the sun, the gentle waves lapped at the, I've forgotten the birds again, haven't I? So let's say the air was filled with the graceful sound of bird song, right? Rather than tweeting, we'll go for bird song. Okay, so this is still essentially those three sentences, but with expanded noun phrases in there. We've got a little bit of sound, we've got a little bit of what we can see. So we've gone for the crystal blue lake was surrounded by evergreen trees. It was covered in emerald green lily pads and bright purple lilies. The soft water shimmered like fish scales in the sun. The air was filled with the graceful sound of bird song. And then I suppose we would eventually move on Tuesday or Wednesday next week to saying on one of those lily pads was sitting a frog with a stick. And then we've moved into our kind of story. We've set the scene and hopefully our story's pretty good. Now, what I've done is I'd like you guys to have a go at writing your own setting description and then sending it in to me. And I must say, some of those character descriptions this week were absolutely brilliant. So well done there. I can't remember everyone's name. I have marked all of the work, but I should have written that down actually, shouldn't I? I know Mason's written a great one in my class. I know Violet's worked really hard next door. And I know lots of children have. What I have done is on the lesson things, I've put a couple of word maps with lots of descriptive words that you can use to make yours a little bit better. So hopefully this works. I would look forward to reading your character descriptions. All right. Thank you very much. We miss you all. Bye-bye.